All right, so if you want to know some of my favorite lures for fishing Lake Mead, specifically for striped bass, then this is definitely the video for you. And none of these lures are super expensive or require any kind of weird techniques. All of these lures are super usable for everybody and are very affordable at pretty much any local fishing store. So let's get on started. Now, the first type of lure that I want to talk about is topwater. Because if I really only had one choice, if you really had to give me one style or one type of lure, I would probably pick topwater for striped bass. Mainly because I feel like there's almost no time of year where I don't catch striper on topwater, and I can catch other types of fish on topwater as well. I can, as long as there's no wind or the wind's fairly low, or you can find a secluded cove, I can catch largemouth on this bait and catch striper in the exact same areas near the shorelines or near rocky points, as well as I can fish this even in the open during the fall and find some boils. So definitely topwater is one of my favorite types of fishing. This right here is a popper. Now the color doesn't matter too much, but this is just one of the colors that I use, and this is a great bait for beginners. Now, some of my other types of lures that I really love are these spooks. This one's made by Heddon, and you don't have to have the feather on the back of them, but I love the ones that have the rattles. So they cost a little bit more, but the rattle does sometimes help. This is on the smaller size of what I would normally use. This is more of like a largemouth type size. I usually try to go for the super spook size, which is about 50% bigger than this one. But any kind of a walk the dog technique is going to be very effective for boils, or even just fishing your shorelines when they're on bait. Either early in the morning, at night, or when it's not too windy. This is another great topwater lure as well. So colors don't matter too much. You saw a white one, you saw some shad imitations, and you saw that black and white one as well. They all do just about the same, in my opinion, but sometimes that white just works a little bit better for any of those clear days for whatever reason. Going on to my second style of fishing that I personally love for striper is any kind of a spoon. Now, if I had to pick only two lures, this would definitely be the second lure that I picked, and you'll notice the reason why I picked kind of these three. Um, so this type of spoon's been used out at Lake Mead for decades. And it's super simple, and it's honestly not that crazy. You just drop it down, reel it in as fast as you possibly can, or you can leave it on the bottom or whatever area of the water column you want to fish at, and just jig it with your rod and just lift it up and down. Either way, you'll catch fish, and you can even cast it into boils or troll this type of bait. So I like this because it's very versatile, and it does catch fish. As well as there's honestly just a certain time of year that you can catch fish down deep that you just can't get other baits down that deep as easily. And like I said, we're not talking about using downriggers or any kind of techniques that people won't have on their everyday boat. We're just talking about rod and a lure and dropping down a bait. That is it. So one of my favorite lures for fishing Lake Mead. Now, I'm going to get into some different types of spoons here real quick just to show you. The colors don't matter too much. Just try to find one that at least look close to bait fish. This one looks like a trout. This one looks kind of like a shad. This one has hooks that dangle either underneath it, or you can fish it this way so that you don't get snagged in the rocks. I personally don't think it matters. I just fish them upside down. I think it looks kind of cool. This one I actually use for trout fishing in other lakes. I actually don't use it in Lake Mead very much, but this would catch fish just fine in Lake Mead as well. It's got a single hook on it. You can use a treble hook if you prefer. So don't get too worried about color. If you want like a color recommendation, black and white does work well at Lake Mead. Bone white works very well, and some of those darker blues and the chartreuse colors do work as well too. So those are like 4 color options. If you like fishing them for other lakes, bring them over to this lake and they should work as well. Now, the last type of lure that I'm going to recommend, like I said, we're talking about cheap, easy to use baits, and we're only going to go over the top 3. So in my top 3, there's a lot of things that I would pick. Some of the things that come to mind are maybe like a rattle trap or even like a bass crankbait. But the reason why they're not in my number one is because I seem to find that a lot of these soft plastic swim baits actually troll at higher speeds better than a lot of those crankbaits. And so sometimes those crankbaits, you'll see them behind the boat. If the boat's like, let's just say you're idle, you're not using the trolling motor, you got your big motor on and you're idling, that might be a little bit too fast, and you might see your crankbaits spinning in circles and things like that. Versus a lot of these swim baits will swim a lot straighter and faster. And the striper do like fast moving baits. So swim bait like this one is like a trout impersonation. You've got a couple of different shad. This is like a smaller shad. This is like a bigger shad size. Either way, can't go anything wrong. Shad colored over at Lake Mead, or trout colors work pretty well for some of those bigger fish as well. So if I had to pick three lures, those would definitely be the top three lures for fishing Lake Mead, and those would definitely cover all of your essentials. Anything else that you might want? I'm looking at my tackle box here. I've got some live bait hooks. Live bait hooks are good in case you want to fish with anchovies, with worms. You want to actually go out there and throw nets to go catch some threadfin shad and either fly line or use a weight. I actually have an egg sinker right here in my tackle box. But in my striper box, it's really basic, guys. I usually either just fish largemouth bass, and I have a ton of different largemouth bass lures, and I'll throw them at striper. Don't get me wrong, but when I'm just going out catching striper and I want to keep it super simple, I bring one little tackle box and that's it. And I can catch, if I can't catch a striper with that tackle box, usually there's about nothing else that'll work anyway. So hopefully that helps you build out a very simple, rugged start to your tackle box on a good budget, because I didn't want to make this video too complicated. I had a great comment last week on my fishing report that talked about using anchovies or not wanting to use a downrigger down deep. And I'm like, man, like, you don't got to use a downrigger. There's plenty of baits that you can use that will catch fish, even in deep water. We'll troll these in deep water. So this bait's only sitting at about 10 feet, maybe down to 20 feet in the water column if we're going really slow. And we're catching fish that are in 90 feet of water. Now, the fish obviously are probably stacked in the water column. So you probably have some fish deep, some fish near the surface. So we're probably catching the ones near the surface. But either way, if there's a lot of fish in the area, it doesn't matter if you're using downriggers or not. So don't get caught up with that. Go out there, have some fun, catch some fish. Enjoy the basics. And if you have these lures in your tackle box, or you have a favorite lure that you like fishing at Lake Mead, make sure you comment that down below so that way other people can know what they can use that's budget friendly and easy to throw out at the lake. So thanks for watching and have a good one.